All right, welcome back to another episode, guys. We're going to be doing this one right here, the Netherlands struggle for land. So I don't know if you guys are aware or not. 20%, I believe it is, of the Netherlands land in general is reclaimed from the sea, essentially, right? So there's a saying called, or there's a saying that goes by, what is it? God created the earth, but the Dutch created the Netherlands, right? So this is a documentary from, I believe, the late 60s, early 70s, and I haven't seen it. I believe it's about Flevoland and how they reclaimed that, which is the newest province in the Netherlands. So, but we're going to jump into it and find out. As always, the link to the original video will be in the description section down below. And the original channel is by Robert Kleinberg. And the video title is called The Films of Ernest Kleinberg, The Netherlands Struggle for Land. So I'm just going to assume Robert Kleinberg, probably related to him somehow. Maybe he's a son or a grandson or something. So, but anyways, yeah, so we're going to jump into it. We're going to find out what this is all about. Let me switch over my screen here. All right. And yeah, the audio quality doesn't seem to be the greatest on the original video. It is old though, so we'll just have to bear with it, right, guys? A man who maketh land is a creator. I guess there's a lot of Dutch creators. Every hour of the day, thousands of men are working on behalf of millions to keep dry the land below the sea. This is their story. All right, cool. I like that music.
Windmills, quaint old towns, and tulips, the Holland of picture books.
I know another Holland. My name is Bakker, Sam Bakker, engineer with the Netherlands Water Ministry. My job to fight the sea.
You guys ever seen the movie or the TV show Dragnet back in the day? Is this how he came on, like he was a detective or something from Dragnet, coming on like with that serious persona to him?
To protect the old land and to make new land. As my father did, as my son will do. Look at our country. A small flat shelf on the northwestern edge of Europe, a quarter the size of the state of New York.
And I believe it's 47% the size of the state of Indiana, which is where I reside. Just random bit of knowledge.
13,000 square miles, of which 3,000 are inland waterways, the delta of the Maas, the Scheldt, and the mighty Rhine. Almost half the land well below sea level, defended by shallow dikes against the rivers and the sea, which time and again through the centuries attacked and flooded the land through the mouth of the rivers and a bulge in the coastline called the Cider Sea.
The Cider Sea?
In the coastline called the Cider Sea.
Okay.
Our windmills are really water pumps designed to drain seepage water from the polders, parcels of land reclaimed from the water and surrounded by dikes. There were some small elevated mounds and islands in what is now Polderland, where at the warning boom of the flood cannon, the people took refuge.
And I'm assuming it's named Polderland because of the fact that it's mainly polders, right? Which is the reclaimed land. It used to be sea. So maybe that's where they started, or maybe there's just the most concentration of polders. I don't know.
And huddled until the flood had subsided. But time and again, up into recent years, the sea would break through with sudden fury. Aided by rain-swollen rivers, it would rip through the dikes we had built with such care, destroying homes, devastating whole villages, and forcing the inhabitants to flee for their lives.
Until they
In
fixed it. In
1891, an unknown young engineer in the water ministry proposed a plan to close the whole Cider Sea with a strong dike to keep out the floods and shorten the coastline, then to reclaim several polders from the new lake, polders separated by water to provide for transportation and drainage, and to make the rest a fresh water basin by replacing the salt water with fresh water.
Okay, so I don't know if they did this area here. I think this one was done, and I believe this one here is Flavoland. This here, as far as I know, this was not reclaimed as of yet, the 2022, January 2022. So maybe this is in the works. I'm pretty sure this is the most recent one, like I said. So maybe they're going to go ahead and do this one. And like I said, I don't know about that one. I'm not sure. Yeah.
From a branch of the Rhine. But it took many years and another great flood before the plan became reality. Cornelius Lely, its designer, was 63 and Minister of Water when the project was signed into law.
Okay.
14 years later, after much delay and preparation, and 3 years after Lely's death, the 20-mile-long closing dike, first step of the project, was completed. The Cider Sea was now an inland lake called IJsselmeer. The massive dike, 300 feet thick and 22 feet above maximum sea level, ended the 300 feet thick called IJsselmeer.
Shit.
The massive dike, 300 feet thick and 22 feet above maximum sea
22
level,
feet.
ended the threat of floods for the region, but it also deprived the Cider Sea fishermen of their main source of income, the herring fishing grounds in the open North Sea.
Yeah, because it's not even like a sea anymore. Now it's like a freshwater lake, I believe. So it kind of did mess up the whole ecosystem a little bit. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right? I mean,
many of the younger men left their villages to find jobs with other fisheries. Some hired out on the herring fleet that leaves the port of Scheveningen near The Hague every spring to fish in northern waters. Fishing had been their family's life for generations. It was their life too. But many others went to work for the Cider Sea Reclamation Project when it started. They would help us make new land. The dredges were already at work. The first big polder, a smaller one, had been completed with the closing dike, would be 120,000 acres. We Dutch have many centuries' experience in dike building, and the methods and materials our ancestors used still serve us well. In the Biesbosch, the muddy delta land of the Rhine, where the water rises and falls with the tides, willow and bulrush grow in abundance. A different variety of reeds is cut and collected from the banks of canals.
okay.
All these are stacked to be used for the making of mattresses.
Mattresses. Okay, we're going to find out where this is going because I'm not quite. I mean, obviously, it's got to do with the dikes, right?
An important part of dike work.
Okay, yeah.
To make a new polder, we first had to construct a dike around the planned area and then pump out the water. But as the muddy sea bottom was much too soft to hold a dike, it had to be dredged out, a long, tedious process.
Okay, so.
In the working harbor on shore, the polder boys, as the dike workers are called, were busy making willow mattresses. Simple as it may seem, this is a specialty job. Mattresses laid against the submerged side of a dike or in the shallow sea bottom offshore to prevent erosion by the currents must last for many years.
Good.
The best mattress makers come from but a few villages in Holland, where sons learn the art from their fathers as soon as they are old enough to work. On the dike site, the dredges were now joined by sand-pumping ships.
So I'm assuming this is something that they have to do quite often, as far as like keep the maintenance and the upkeep up. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so important to pass it down, to generation, unless it, like I said, it's something that they're doing quite often. Wow, so it's a lot more involved than I thought. I thought it was just kind of like they build it and it's just kind of been there for a while. No, they have to keep doing it, I think, because those reeds aren't going to last very long in that water. I mean, so okay, yeah, and we're not even a third of the way into this original video. We're going to learn a lot from this, guys. I'm excited.
As soon as the soft mud was scooped out in one spot, the hole had to be filled with sand, dredged and brought up in barges from the river estuaries to the south, where it had clogged the traffic lanes. The sandy core was then covered with a layer of heavy boulder clay, which is impervious to water and which we found in great quantities near the northern rim of the former Cider Sea.
Okay.
On this hydraulic fill, as the core is called, we dumped more clay week after week, slowly building it up to two narrow parallel ridges protruding just above the waterline, the beginning of a new dike. In the workyard.
So the sea level must not be very deep there then. If they're able to just kind of like build it up like that and it's already that close to the surface, it must not be too terribly deep in that area. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but just speculating.
The beginning of a new dike. In the workyards, barges were loaded with rocks, the only material we have to import from other countries, and finished brushwood mattresses slid down the ways ready to be...
The only material they have to import from other countries is the big-ass rocks. The boulder rocks, I think they said. That's cool. So they're almost self-sufficient with this water management.
And finished brushwood mattresses slid down the ways ready to be towed to the construction site. There the infant dike had slowly grown in length and concrete slabs were rammed into ridges for added strength against pressure. Brushwood mattresses, pushed against the ridges and then weighted down with heavy rocks, were to protect the underwater section of the dike against erosion. Now a steady stream of sand barges, filled to capacity, arrived at the scene. A powerful jet of water diluted the sand, which was then pumped through suction tubes onto the dike body, the space between the ridges. Sand into the center. Mattresses and rocks against the sides. Slowly, a dike section took shape. When the sand fill was completed, the profile was built up with clay and then topped with dry dirt. Then the final cover, crushed rock and old brick on the...
This dude, he's just cruising on there. Sorry, guys. I know you're probably getting into that, but I had to see that again.
Then the final cover, crushed rock and old brick on the slope facing the future polderland. Imported granite blocks toward the sea.
Wonder why... So there's one kind of blocks going towards what's going to be where the polders are, the inland sea, I'm assuming, right? And then there's another kind of blocks, the granite blocks toward the ocean. I wonder wonder if they're going to say what the difference is. I don't remember what the first block is. I think limestone.
On the slope facing the future pole, final cover. Then the final cover, crushed rock and old brick on the slope facing the future
crushed
polder
rock
line.
and old brick, okay.
Imported granite blocks toward the sea.
He's wearing those wooden clogs. Probably comes in handy though with all this being on all that rock and stuff though. I mean, it gives you a nice sturdy, stable footing, you know, whereas a boot or a shoe or anything rubber would kind of bend and form, you know, into all the cracks and I don't know. Maybe that's why, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason wooden clogs are from the Netherlands. Maybe they specifically used the wooden clogs to walk around on all this stone when they're crushing it. Maybe there's a correlation there. If you know about that possibility or not a possibility, put that down in the comment section down below.
On the top, burnt brick for a surface road.
Burnt brick.
This is how the encircling dike was completed. Foot by foot, section after section.
Oh yeah, it's
more than 40 miles of it. It
that's
had taken 4 years.
a while.
It would take 2 more to drain the polder.
Wow.
The emerging land, seeded with marine grasses to speed up the drying, was soon populated with great flocks of water birds.
Okay, so they didn't build land up where the polder or whatever it's called is. That's just literally the water's just drained out of the way and it just dries up. Okay, so I was confused on that. So, all right.
Who darkened the sky with their flights.
See, I was wondering, like, I thought that they may have brought in extra dirt and actually build it up, but no.
With marine grasses to speed up the drying, was soon populated with great flocks of water birds who darkened the sky with their flights.
Darken their sky with their flights, huh?
Then came the war.
Uh-oh. Yeah, man, that would have been nuts to live through that. Let me make my screen bigger for you guys here.
In its wake, it left cities and villages reduced to rubble. Great bridges collapsed in the rivers.
Oh, wow.
Much of the land flooded, especially in the south. Dikes had been blown up by friend and foe alike, by the enemy to deny us the use of our land, by our allies to stop the invader.
Wow. I didn't know any of that.
There was much destruction, but there was no despair. We set out to salvage what was possible and carried on as best we could through the...
So, I mean, I know you got like a little bit of a love-hate relationship kind of, you know, with Germany. I mean, there's on one hand, you know, it's like your big brothers in Germany, you know, and then on the other hand, they did this. So yeah, I see this. And I mean, obviously with, I think it's Rotterdam, right? They blew up the city center. Man, but again, I mean, nobody alive today had anything to do with that, you know, so I'm not, you know, saying anything like that, but I can understand why there could be that love-hate kind of tension there for sure. I didn't even know it was this bad, actually, as far as right there in the Netherlands. So
out to salvage what was possible and carried on as best we could through the difficult years of recovery.
yeah, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta
Luckily,
do.
most of the Cider Sea works had escaped destruction. Pumping on a reduced scale had quietly been continued, and the big new polder had fallen dry. In 2 more years, it would be under cultivation.
Nice.
It was time for us engineers to move on with our plans. From the houseboats we lived in with our families, we could see the long lines of brushwood stacks against the horizon. On the new polder, to be still larger than the previous one, we planned to build a city named Lelystad.
So they drained the sea level by making the dike, right? So then the first polder, where was it at?
Long lines of brushwood stacks against the horizon.
The first polder showed up because of the
On the
land
new
got
polder,
drained.
to be still larger than the previous one.
Yeah, I didn't go back far enough. There it is. Yeah, so the first one is in the top right. So if that's because of the land got drained, well then this one, Flavorland, right? So now are they going to drain the land more? Or is this where they're going to start building land up? I'm confused here.
From the houseboats we lived in with our families, we could see the long lines of brushwood stacks against the horizon. On the new polder, to be still larger than the previous one, we planned to build a city named Lelystad, or Lely City, in honor of the originator of the project.
Okay.
After plotting and mapping the new polder in detail, with drainage ditches, canals, and pump works, we had staked it out in the shallow sea.
They staked it out.
We took a final position reading on the lighthouse of Urk, on the town of Marken, and on Enkhuizen. In the gray, choppy waters, we drove down the last stake for the future location of Lelystad.
That's cool.
Then came again the many months of dredging and sand pumping and the dumping of clay.
Okay. They're building this one
and
up.
more boulder clay, until it no longer disappeared with a splash in the water, but rose above the surface, a small mound of wet mud, starting point for a 56-mile dike.
Okay, another dike?
How long would it take? Years had been lost to the war and to repair its damage. Now, with the population on the upswing again, the need for new land was urgent. Reclamation work went ahead at full steam. Within 2 years, a good part of the dike had been completed. Converted houseboats and simple office structures stood on shore. And one day, without fanfare, we put up a sign. Now there was Lelystad. Lelystad grew with the dike. Soon there was a modest skyline, our headquarters, trailers, former houseboats, dwellings of wood or brick, a small school, and a big pumping station. Drainage of the new polder was in full swing. In 2 or 3 more years, we hoped, the former sea bottom would be farmland as good or even better than that of the northeast polder, which was already in full production. Lelystad was now entered on
Okay, so I get it. They're not making a dike that goes across like
production.
Like this one here. That was just to cut off the sea from the flooding. Their dikes, I see. So they're building a dike. Literally, it just goes all the way around and then draining the middle, I think. Yeah. So then that dike went around back. Okay. I think I'm back on track here. This is a damn good documentary.
Lelystad was now entered on the maps. More
Nice.
families had
It's
settled.
official.
On weekdays, the men worked in the water or on the dikes. On Sundays, they beautified their tiny yards or took their children fishing, a favorite pastime of most Dutch boys. The land was at peace.
All right, we are back. One second, full screen. Go back to here. All right, so you can hear me again. I moved my mic and it like undid my thing. So, all right, cool.
But the sea did not sleep.
Whoops. I'm gonna go back because I was talking.
Boys.
Yep, fishing. Went
The
fishing
land
before.
was at peace.
Been a while since I've done any fishing. It's fun though. Very relaxing. I do enjoy it.
But the sea did not sleep. Early the next year, a spring tide, joining forces with a heavy gale, drove a solid mass of water against the Netherlands coast. The Zuiderzee closing dike held, but in South Holland and Zeeland, the furious sea washed over the embankments within a few hours. The people fled, carrying with them what they could. Some tried to save their precious cattle, but the flood was too fast and most livestock had to be abandoned.
So the dike that went across to stop the sea worked, but then it came back around. So there's another water inlet, I'm assuming, that it backed up through.
The whole Zuiderzee workforce and equipment was rushed south to help save the villages, but there was no hope. The dikes had burst in too many places. The entire coastal region south of Rotterdam had been lost to the sea.
Wow. Holy shit.
We threw everything we could into rescue operations. But in the first terrible night, 2,000 men, women, and children had perished, and 300,000 people had lost all they had.
Oh, wow. Oh, man, I couldn't imagine.
It was war all over again. War with our oldest enemy.
The sea. Oh, wow, that's
But
surreal.
now we were resolved it must not happen again, no matter what the cost. After the worst of the damage had been repaired and the water had subsided, we set to work to seal off the whole Rhine Delta with a chain of strong dikes containing ship locks and sluices to control the river flow.
All right, yeah.
This meant first constructing artificial islands in the open water, beginning with enormous ring dikes and working docks, then pumping dry the inside area and packing it with sand. Concrete beams rammed into the ground would support the locks and sluices. Closing dikes would then be extended to the neighboring islands, and the whole structure topped with a 3-lane highway. Finally, the ring dike would be dredged away again, leaving the completed job. It was extremely difficult, diking against the flow of the river and the tides of the sea. But within 1 year, the first embankment was up and a cement mixing plant had been moved to the base. 18 months later, the whole pit, 1 mile long and 1/3 of a mile wide, was dry.
Wonder why they like re-drain it or like let it flood back afterwards to like let it just be back to water. I would have kept it there in case you need to like do maintenance on it or something. I mean,
And scoring, and 18 months later, the whole pit, a mile long and a third of a mile wide, was dry. And scores of pile drivers began their work, smoking and snorting and hissing steam.
wow.
22,000 concrete piles, many 80 feet long, on this first island alone, to support 17 sluices with their steel gates and surface road on top. How long would the whole project take? Barring new disasters, perhaps 25 years. Cost? No matter. The country would be secure.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, like the money, it can't be an issue because like your people are dying and it's like, it's going to get worse. The threat's real. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it is what it is. And unfortunately, um, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And if that involves taking all your resources and jamming into it, well, you're going to be better off in the long run. So you know, so yeah. Wow. I didn't know it was that intense. I mean, I heard about the water situation. I've done other reaction videos on the Netherlands. I knew about the canals and everything, but like, wow, this is sort of an eye-opening thing, for sure, for sure.
And we would gain a little more land by reclamation.
Yep.
Once more, the Netherlands had returned to normal in the country, in the towns.
Man, I would love to go there someday, visit. That would be so cool. Look at that, like a castle.
Occasionally, one can observe a group of earnest-looking men on a boat ride through the canals of a polder. They are not on a pleasure cruise. They are the members of a local polder board, charged with the safety of one of the 2,800 polders which make up most of the Netherlands.
Okay.
They inspect the dikes regularly, their trained eyes scrutinizing every levee, bridge, or dwelling along the banks for possible weaknesses or defects due to settling of the ground. To be the head of a polder board is a position of great trust and responsibility. After their inspection tour, the board members assemble in the ancient polderhuis, the headquarters building. Seated beneath the 17th century painting depicting the session of an earlier polder board, they discuss their own findings as well as condition reports from citizens and dike contractors. Any correction work they deem necessary will be carried out without delay. After the end of the emergency, we of the Sighter Sea Force had returned to our task. We were far behind schedule. One war and one flood behind.
Wow,
Dike construction for the final polders now proceeded simultaneously on different parts of the project. Simple machines now help the polder boys speed up the bundling of reeds, but all the rest of mattress making had to be by hand as always.
Huh. Wonder why it's just not the right, there's no equipment that does it, huh?
Sons worked alongside their fathers and grandfathers, and the experienced older men taught the boys how properly to make use of their muscle. This is how it has always been, from generation to generation. We had moved to a new home, another houseboat moored at Enkhuizen, north of Amsterdam. As regional project engineer, it was one of my duties to supervise the work of our contractors, the mattress-making companies, the dredging outfits and surface builders, and to ensure that everything was carried out according to government plans and specifications. In more than 25 years on the project, how many thousand brushwood mattresses had I seen on their way, bobbing in the choppy waters, protected by a barge tied across the front? How many daily trips had I made in fair weather and foul to construction sites? How many thousands of tons of rocks had I watched them dump on the mattresses to place them firmly against the body of the dike? Many of the polder boys, the dike workers, I had known for a quarter of a century.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, that's half a person's life almost, or like a third of it. I mean, it depends on your life, you know, how long you've been alive. Personally, that'd be over half my life. I'm 35, so wow.
Now they were graying men, and their sons worked with them. They in turn would be middle-aged men and heads of families before the whole project was completed.
Wow.
On the Lelystad side, 20 miles of embankment are now almost finished. With the use of some newer surface covering materials, such as bituminous bricks, work can proceed more rapidly. As soon as the dike road is paved and the inlet channel bridged, there will be a direct link between Lelystad and Amsterdam. First part of a highway net that will cover a whole new province of the Netherlands, wrested from the sea. And Lelystad will be its capital. New Lelystad, that is, under construction a little farther inland, where there is more room to expand.
Yeah.
To 20,000, later to 100,000. A planned, spacious city like Emmeloord in the northeast polder.
You know, I don't think they're done with all this, though. Like, everything that's planned out that they're talking about in this video, I don't think they even have the one polder done. And I don't know. I mean, is there a highway that connects? I don't know. I don't know if they've done that yet either.
The Netherlands are crowded. Many thousands have returned from former colonies.
In fact, the Netherlands is the most densely populated country in Europe, guys, in case you didn't know.
The population, already nearly 1,000 to the square mile, is increasing rapidly. In the old land, cities are reaching the limits of their growth, competing for space with industry. In the new land, they can be planned for future needs, with industrial parks and residential districts far enough apart, laid out around a civic center. Cities supported by 500,000 acres of rich new polder land. Our own land instead of colonies. Land we have made from the sea. We Dutch love the outdoors. On Sundays, you'll find us on the road, on scooters, bikes, on foot, exploring our country, remembering its past, enjoying its hard-won beauty. Some people say, in time, the sea will take it all again.
Let's hope
They
not,
warn
guys.
us that the polar ice is melting, the North Sea level slowly rising, the shelf on which we live subsiding.
Wow, yeah, that
No
sucks.
matter. We have no fear. The founder of this country, when he went to battle for independence from Spain, once said, "You need not have success when trying, or any hope to make a start."
Okay. I thought that was gonna be like a song starting, like a drum roll. Jamming those beams in it. Wow, that's a lot. Those guys are probably a bit like oxes, man. They gotta do that shit all day long. That's a lot of strength it takes. Yeah, see? All day. 50 years. Shout out Dutchies, man. You guys are just incredible. I mean, nothing stops you. Is there English auto-generated? What was they saying? Whoops. It's not gonna say that. Nope. Oh, now it pops up. Okay, I said oh. It translated oh.
On the southern end of the closing dike, near the working port, we have set a modest monument to Cornelius Lely. In our little museum in Lelystad, beneath the royal emblem, is an inscription which reads, "In this new land the ground is laid for healthy future generations."
Nice, nice. Wow, guys. Wow. So there you have it. Just, whoops, let me get the right screen on here. Wow. I mean, there was so much going on. So much more than I even knew. Wow. I mean, that's just, there's just so much more going on behind the scenes. And sorry, guys, I was trying to read a couple of these comments here. Just great documentary. I saw this almost 20 years ago in a coffee house in Seattle. Never forgot it. Thanks for uploading. May God bless the Dutch people. They're amazing people, very dedicated people. Yeah. I mean, all the comments on here are positive. So a lot of people saying these are our heroes. So yeah, man, that's insane. I mean, that's just crazy. You guys can accomplish some stuff. That's for sure. So anyways, if you like my videos, my reaction videos, if you enjoy learning stuff that, maybe you would have never came across these kinds of videos or anything like that without seeing them on the channel or anything like that, just go ahead and subscribe, hit like, share with your friends. I appreciate it. It doesn't cost you anything. It just helps the channel grow. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. So keep on learning, guys. All right, take care.